that you can bring things to market quickly and actually, get on that bandwagon much faster, because it's there and it's going to happen as I think most of us see.
I again agree, and I'll go one step further. I mean, here's the thing: telecom doesn't know what innovation is. It just doesn't. I mean, there's just a terrible history going back through the 70s and 80s of not producing anything new ever, compared to software engineering, which is now omnipresent, available everywhere, and a gigantic international effort of both corporations and open source projects. And so, you know what, if it takes Google and the rest of them to shoehorn in a forced cycle of actual innovation, which is probably the first one that telecom is ever going to be forced to deal with, ever, by the standards of other industries, fine. Let it happen. Let that happen so that people see what changes mean first, and then we can worry about the fallout afterwards. But something has got to give so that telecom starts to look a little bit more like software engineering in other disciplines. And if it takes Google to do that, then that's what it takes the first time through.
Earlier today there was a comment that everybody needs to be more like Sony. I think what people didn't say is, or maybe I said it, people need to be also more like Google. What does that mean? Be more like Sony, be more like Google. I mean, each of us probably has an idea of what that means, but I would agree with the advice. I think every organization in communications needs to learn to, at the very least, move faster. And it may be more than that, but at least move faster. Okay, so
I think we all agree.
We all agree on that. There is absolutely no concern about that. Now, for those of you in the market who are actually not as confident as these guys are, because these are all software guys, by the way. It's like, we've got a loaded panel here. Anybody still a little bit uncomfortable about where this is all going, or how these companies are positioning to actually be available as a development partner for anybody who wants to use them? Because it's pretty clear that's the story here, that these tools and capabilities are going to be opened up. Anybody who wants to use them can do them. Jaja, for example, and I've used actually 3 of the services here. Rodrigue provides DIDs. I'm not sure whether I'm using one of your DIDs or not, frankly, but I may be using it. So I may be actually an end user of all 4 of the services without knowing it. Very useful, but also after using your services, I've actually come to the conclusion, I'm one of these people who for 10 years has told everybody that I meet that voice is a commodity and we need to deal with that. I actually, after using your services, have decided that voice is not a commodity, which, that's a very big change for somebody who's for 10 years from podia just like this saying voice is a commodity, deal with it. I actually now think our problem is that voice, the way users experience voice, actually is anything but a commodity. I just absolutely flatly disagree with that thesis. That doesn't mean that in the wholesale business we don't buy and sell the stuff as though it were a commodity, but I'm not in the wholesale business. I'm an end user communications, and I can tell you with exquisite precision how I use each of these services, how I use my mobiles, how that's different from landline, how I might use Skype when I don't use Skype, and what I'm doing when I use each of those services, who I'm talking to, where they are, what devices are active in my pocket, or whether I think the interface is pleasant or unpleasant. All of those things actually have a separate use case, and I would encourage each of you actually to think about how you use all of the various voice-related communications, appliances, and applications in your life, and ask yourself whether any one of those is actually a complete 100 substitute for the other service, which is the functional definition of commodity, right? If sugar is a commodity, why is that? Because 10 pounds of sugar from this company and 10 pounds of sugar from that company are in fact chemically identical. There's no additional value. I would challenge anybody to really make the argument that mobile voice, landline voice, using Jaja to call Israel, using voice as a button on a website, are actually fully exchangeable experiences, therefore by definition are not commodities. And one of the traps that we run into in the communications business is we've convinced ourselves that voice is a commodity, and as soon as we do that, we are in a prison that we have devised for ourselves. So the big thing I want to encourage you to do is, and again I would say flat out I've been wrong for 10 straight years, emphatically wrong, that voice in fact is not an application, it's a whole bunch of applications. So the issue is, how do we take each one of these various use modes and applications and actually make them relevant to an end user, and then also chargeable? to an end user so that you get paid and the experience on the user end is actually highly differentiated. So I'd ask any of our panel members to comment about that.
Can I respond to the commodity thing? Because we've been talking about this for years. Litmus test to tell if you're at a telecom conference is if people are talking about whether what you do is a commodity or not. I have never been to a software development conference in my life where people have sat around and asked themselves whether XML or RSS feeds or UML diagrams or any of the other stuff that we put together when we make applications are commodities. It's just inane. It doesn't make any sense. And what's interesting about that is you only wind up asking, I think it's a great question to keep asking, right? And we only ask ourselves this question when we're thinking from the telecom siloed mindset. What I would like to see happen, one way or another, and in each of our separate ways we're all contributing to this bit by bit, is that voice is just another tool that you put inside of designing some application or some user experience. I mean, if the voice is what happens when your prescription gets filled and an IVR outdials to let you know that you need to pick it up because you're 72 hours late, or voice is what happens when your network is having a problem and all of your engineers get automatically conference called onto a bridge, at that point, you're definitely not talking about an exchangeable, replaceable commodity. What you are talking about is a tool that gets wrapped into making software applications. And I hope that at some point I'm at one of these conferences where the attitude is that voice is, in Tom Howell's phrase, this is great, a spice that you add to some other composite dish that you're making, that it is a tool that is available to you like so many other tools are. And if that ever happens, by the way, we're not going to hear the thing described as a commodity anymore. It's going to be an application design tool.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that as well, is that if you look actually taking the view of the consumer is, wake up in the morning, people will go to their email or will check a portal or will go to Facebook, right? A lot of younger people will go to Facebook, will do things, then we'll go in the car, go to work, go to whatever it is. And voice kind of, the way we look at voice is, it should carry with you all along. So if I'm at my computer, and like all of us, we spend a ton of time in front of our computers. If I want to dial, first thing I do is kind of go to my pockets and say, where's my cell, right? We don't even have a landline anymore at work. So I need to find my cell. If I don't have my cell phone, I'm lost, I can't dial. Can't find my cell phone, find someone else to call my cell, I find my cell phone, I call. Why not just from, and that's what we do in the office, what I do personally, why not just from my computer being able to just, dial the number. I go to my contact list, see the number, I call and I dial. And then that I talk to my computer or that I talk to my cell, it doesn't matter. But that's part of it's an easier live experience for all of us. Same thing, I know I need to make a call and I'll be in the car, don't want to start dialing from the car, can't find the number or whatever, I'll just schedule the call from my computer. I'll be there anyway in the morning on my computer before I leave for work. I'll be looking at my email. So schedule the call for 10 minutes from now because I know that I'll have time to get to the car, get on the highway. By then, I've passed the major traffic bottleneck, and by the time I'm basically cruising in the carpool lane, I'll get my call and I just can do my conference call from there, and it's easy. So I think part of what we want to see is indeed move away from a quote-unquote commodity to something that's actually incredibly valuable. And if we find the right set of applications, not only will users use them, but users will pay for them. Because I think we all pay for something that's really valuable. So the business model will follow.
Eric, voice activation, I think, is something that you've been playing with. And I think that's really, really important. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
For us, when a user calls our system, we have a call assistance, and the user has access to a whole bunch of different applications. So what we're trying to do, it's a bit like on the web, some people are comfortable going to Yahoo and because they know where everything is and they're comfortable. Some others like AOL better. So for us, we're trying to replicate the same user experience, but voice-based. So when they call our system, they have access to a whole bunch of applications. They don't need to call 7 different numbers. They call one number, always the same number. From that number, they can reach all their contacts or all their Skype contacts and some voice applications. So for us, it's all in the user experience.
Give us an example of a session.
Well,
you want to call a friend.
For example, I want to call you, I call you, and then in the middle of the call, we're talking about Jaja, so I want to call Michael. So I press star, and who would you like to call? Call Michael, and then we're connected. So that's a conference call right there.
For those of you who sell conference services, think about it. This is going to destroy the margin in that business. I'm really sorry, but it's going to happen, right? Because these kinds of capabilities are now available. In fact, how many of you are familiar with Microsoft's Response Point or software-based PBX? Anybody? Okay, now this is really slick. Now, I'm one of these people who really never reads the manuals, never goes to the training about the new PBX. I just resent it. I don't remember all the keystrokes, and so I can't even transfer a call typically in an office. Now, the good news is for 15 years, I haven't worked in an office, so I don't even need a PBX anymore. But the thing that really struck me, and it's because I'm using some of these services.